Stanford University.
Good evening. My name is Abbas Milani. I direct the Iranian Studies program here at Stanford. Welcome to our 10th celebration of the Bita Prize. As you saw in this great film directed by Mr. Ala Mohseni, our past winners have been each iconic figures in their own domain. We are fortunate, I think, to have two of them with us tonight. Our special thanks to Ms. Shahnoosh Parsipur, who has traveled from Berkeley to be with us. She was the winner, as you saw, of our award last year. I want to also thank our own inimitable Professor Beyzai, the fourth winner of this award. He's supposed to be here. I think he's sitting somewhere in the back. Needless to say, none of this work of 10 years would have been possible without the generous, continuous support of Bitat Daryabari. We are immensely grateful to Professor Ilam, who will be speaking shortly. I must also thank our very capable program manager, Ms. Roma Parhad, ably assisted by Mr. Franco Errico, a proud UC Berkeley graduate, whose hopes might well be dashed tomorrow in the big game, for working tirelessly, gracefully, and efficiently to manage every detail of tonight's program. I also think we have a group of students from Palo Alto High. I had the good fortune of speaking to that group in 3 weeks ago, and I saw that the text they were reading, by sheer coincidence, was Marjane Satrapi's Persepolis. Iran has, in the last 150 years, experienced 3 epochal transformations. The country has gone from a feudal society where 90% of the population lived in villages to a predominantly urban capitalist economy. Secondly, Iranian women, about half of the population, long imprisoned in the inner sanctums of a male-dominated society, have emerged to occupy an increasingly assertive role in every facet of Iranian society. Finally, Iran is no longer limited to its borders of geography. Almost 10% of Iranians now live in exile, a fact unprecedented in the 3,000-year history of the country. This remarkable turn of events has led to the creation of a diaspora, or a large exilic community dreaming of home. It has also increasingly led to the creation of a vibrant, diverse diaspora literature in languages as far away as Swedish, Dutch, German, English, and of course, French. If in English and French there is a touch of romance attached to the word exile, Iran as a culture has long abhorred the experience of exile. One poet has called exile, or Ghurbat, a tarantula, while our great national poet Sa'di, in words that echo Shakespeare, sometimes compares exile to death. It is as if every aspect of these 3 momentous changes, particularly the emergence of woman and of an exilic experience, have left a deep impact in Marjane Satrapi's life. In the alchemy of her words and images, these experiences are rendered in a tone at once joyously celebratory and somberly tragic. The traumas are no less surgically described as their triumphs. She is the elegant voice of our diaspora, writing in enthralling but at times uncomfortable images about the challenges and opportunities of independent Iranian women carving out an assertive identity in a world that dangerously vacillates from democratic acceptance to xenophobic rejection of the cultural other. For us, then, tonight is important not only because it is the 10th Bita Award, but also because it is the auspicious beginning of recognizing voices of our diaspora as an indispensable part of Persian arts and letters. And who indeed better to present this voice and these transitions than Marjane Satrapi. Praise for her work has been deservedly hyperbolic. One critic suggests that Persepolis is the best first-person graphic novel to date. Her uncanny way of incorporating exposition with nary a stumble in her pell-mell narrative momentum immerses us in the lore of Iranian history and culture. It is a comic strategy that maintains buoyancy even in the face of oppression, torture, and death of people dear to her, without for a moment treating the ordeals of others as secondary to her own. Satrapi's unforced empathy contrasts with the self-pitying tendencies that are common to first-person comics written by men. But it also, I think, contrasts extremely well with all too many narratives by women from Muslim societies who pander to cultural phobias and shibboleths, and in the words of one other critic, only emulate the captivity novels of the last century America, positioning Iranian women as mere objects of misogyny and victimhood. In Satrapi's world, women are daringly defiant, often satirically armed subjects who help determine their own fate. Her tone is never condescending, but always proud, sometimes prophetic. As a 6-year-old, she had declared her desire to be a prophet, even writing her 8 commandments, including no arthritis in old age. I think many of us in the audience are obviously praying for the realization of this commandment. From the mundane to the sublime, in her hands, in the words of another critic, grand upheavals are viewed through her unique gaze, an odd compound of the malleable and the defiant, doomed to settle nowhere and as quick to argue with God as with her kindly grandmother. A God, incidentally, rendered in her work anthropomorphically, a first in the history of Iranian iconography. Her God is a sage reminiscent of Michelangelo's masterpiece, Creation of Adam. Another critic has written of how Satrapi's text and images comment on each other, enhance each other, challenge, question, and reveal each other. It is not, the critic says, too fanciful to say that Satrapi, reading from right to left in her native Persian, and from left to right in French, the language of her education, has found the precise medium to explore her double cultural heritage. The richness of her narrative, in fact, in my view, goes beyond the paradoxes of Iran, but helps us understand and hopefully transcend the troubling tensions of our human condition, particularly in these turbulent, if not traumatic times. At this time, it gives me a true great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for the night, Professor Harry Elam. It is no exaggeration to say that for the past 10 years, his name has become synonymous with arts, humanities, diversity, excellent undergraduate education at Stanford. He is the Vice President for the Arts of Stanford University, Director of the Institute for Diversity in the Arts, and Professor of Humanities with a sterling record of both scholarship on theater and directing award-winning performance of artists, foremost amongst them the works of August Wilson. Professor Elman is educated at Harvard and then got his PhD at UC Berkeley, so tomorrow I think he too will have a tormenting time. Professor Elman.
Thank you, Abbas, for that introduction. And no, after being here 26 years, I have at Stanford, I have no loyalty other but to the Cardinal tomorrow. In my new role as Vice President for the Arts, and on behalf of the President and Provost of Stanford University, I want to welcome you all to this incredible ceremony, the 10th Bita Prize tonight, and also to congratulate Marjane Satrapi for winning this prestigious award. I also want to offer a few notes of appreciation. Thank you to Hamid and Christina Moghadam for their founding vision that led to the creation of the Iranian Studies program at Stanford, and to Bita Diarabi for her generous support in helping the program grow, particularly in the fields of language, literature, and the arts. And to Shidan and Miran Taslimi, Alex and Faye Gassemier, Ambassador Zahedi, all of your support for this program has helped expand it to reach new heights. And will you join me in giving all of them a round of applause, please? The Iranian Studies program celebrated its decennial at Stanford this past year. In this decade, the program has grown to include 5 interdisciplinary initiatives, 6 archival collections, and I've heard one more might be on the way, more than 25 courses related to Iran, a minor within Stanford Global Studies, and they have sponsored more than 300 events with a total attendance of over 50,000 people. Clearly, the Iranian Studies program at Stanford is an example of truly interdisciplinary work, and for being an incredible program. Its focus on Iran as a civilization, its culture, history, and literature touch all corners of our campus, from economics to politics, religion, from arts to sciences and literature. I want to focus for a moment, though, on the work this program has done with the arts. The Stanford Festival of Iranian Arts hosts plays, workshops, lectures, and musical performances that bring scholars and artists from around the world to Stanford to showcase the rich culture of Iran. We are especially pleased to have the acclaimed Iranian playwright Bahram Bezahi, who Abbas mentioned is here earlier, and I don't know where he is, but please give him a hand, please, as well. And support his oh, there you. I should have seen you right there. And to support his ongoing work. Last year, Iranian Studies program added a new initiative entitled Public Art, Public Spaces, Iran. In its first years, the project brought together musicians, street artists, and scholars to engage in an ongoing conversation about the multiple notions of public in Iran. The program consists of newly issued arts projects, explorations of various cultural productions, and intellectual traditions, and examines recent transformation of Iranian civic life. The first series in this initiative, entitled Art, Social Space, and Public Discourse in Iran, was envisioned and directed by artist and arts faculty member Allah Allah is here as well. He organized and presented a 3-day symposium in November, including talks, panels, arts projects, and lecture performances. The opening ceremony took place at the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco on November 3rd with a live stream from Tomorrow, a traditional coffee house in Tehran, Iran. I love that name, a live stream from Tomorrow today. In conjunction with the project, Professor Ebtekar offered the course Public Space in Iran, Murals, Graffiti, Performance, and last fall quarter at Stanford. This exciting project demonstrates the power of art as an important catalyst for thought, discussion, and even for change and action. Such productive connections to communities and global publics must continue to be an important element in Stanford Arts as we move forward. This brings me back to the Bita Prize for Persian Arts. With Bita Prize support. This initiative shines a light on the important intersections of art and struggle for freedom. It helps to spotlight Iranian artists as innovators and leaders in preparing this future. Marjane Satrapi is the 10th Bita Prize recipient. She joins, as you saw earlier, a distinguished group of Iranian scholars, artists, and musicians. Her work as a graphic novelist, cartoonist, illustrator, film director, and children's book author is unique, captivating, and daring. In Persepolis, Ms. Satrapi elegantly and poignantly shares the challenges of growing up in Iran. Her journey of exile, adapting to a foreign land, and the pull between East and West are incredibly documented in this film. Now, the subtitle of this event tonight is Facts and Fictions of Women, Exile, and Identity. And if we look around us anywhere in the news today, we see the timeliness of this title. These are extremely important themes, and exploring them through art is one of the most powerful ways to elevate these conversations. For the arts can engage the most important issues of human existence, past, present, and future. The arts can evoke empathy and compel contemplation. They can both reflect current conditions and challenge conventions. Operating across time, disciplines, and cultures, the arts have the potential to ignite new understandings, to provoke critical thinking, and to promote innovation. As we begin a new era at Stanford, with a new vision and a new president, we equally initiate a new moment for the arts. In this significant moment, with its intellectual strengths and resources across the board, Stanford stands uniquely positioned to integrate arts thinking across the curriculum and to propel arts making and artistic exploration into the future. Notably, the arts have productively impacted the relationship between Iran and the United States through knowledge of Iran's dynamic history and culture. This is particularly why we are so pleased to see initiatives like this at Stanford. Ms. Satrapi, tonight we celebrate the work you have done, and we look forward to the tremendous work we know you will do. Congratulations to you, and thank you for your incredible effort.
Good evening and welcome. With your permission, I would like to start a few words in Persian, and I'll continue my remarks in English. میهمانان و دوستان گرامی، به دهمین مراسم جایزه ادب و هنر در دانشگاه استنفورد خوش آمدید. با توجه به اینکه غالب میهمانان امشب قاعدتاً فارسی نمی‌دانند، بنابراین به ناگزیر بخش عمده صحبت‌هایم به انگلیسی معروض خواهد شد. قبل از هر چیز اجازه بدید فروتنانه از حمایت بی‌دریغ شما طی این 10 سال تشکر کنم. اجازه بدید اعتراف کنم که بدون حمایت‌های بی‌دریغ شما انجام این مراسم غیر ممکن بود. گروه ایران شناسی دانشگاه استنفورد 14 سال پیش با حمایت حمید و کریستینا مقدم آغاز به کار کرد و در ادامه این فرصت ایجاد شد که نه تنها این جایزه به هنرمند یا محقق برجسته‌ای اهدا شود، بلکه کلاس‌هایی در زمینه ادبیات، سینما و تئاتر هم ایجاد گردد. توفیق این برنامه که امروز به مهمترین مرکز ایرانشناسی امریکا بدل شده، مدیون کسی است که بیگمان یکی از شرافتمندترین انسان‌های روزگار و مایه مباهات دانشگاه استنفورد است. او کسی نیست جز آقای دکتر میلانی عزیز، مظهر کاردانی و کوشندگی. حضورشان مستدام باد. در خاتمه ضمن عرض خیر مقدم حضور میهمان ویژه امشب خانم ستراپی، از ایشان به خاطر تمام تلاششان در جهت ارتقاء سطح فرهنگی ایران و ایرانیان تشکر می‌کنم. Greetings and welcome to our 10th celebration of an Iranian artist of singular accomplishments. 10 years ago, when we launched the Bita Prize, we certainly had high hopes and great expectations about what such a prize at such a university could become. Now that in our 10th anniversary, we take stock of our record, I think it's fair to say that, as you saw in the wonderful film by Mr. Mohseni, we could not have imagined and assembled a more notable, iconic collection of luminaries. Before saying a few words about our distinguished winner tonight, let me offer some much-needed words of gratitude to the individuals who played a key role in making our success possible. First and foremost, I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for coming not just tonight, but to every one of our last 9 nights of celebration. Without your support, our success wouldn't have been possible. I also would like to thank Hamid and Christina Mogaddam for their vision in launching the Iranian Studies program at Stanford. Special words of gratitude goes to our brilliant and outstanding Director of Iranian Studies, Dr. Milani, whose leadership and vision steered the program from day one. As you all know, there are so many Iranian endowments at so many universities, but none of them have been as successful as our Iranian Studies program here at Stanford. We have more than 300 scholars visiting Stanford every year under our program. And we owe this success to our 2017, the Richard W. Lyman Award winner, Dr. Milani. Thank you. I would also like to thank Professor Saller, Dean of School of Humanities and Sciences, who has been a constant source of support for our program. This is the first year that he has not attended our event. As we say in Persian, his place is empty. And we are happy that his place is generously filled by someone no less important in leadership of this great institution. I want to welcome and thank Professor Ilham for accepting our invitation. Anyone interested in the fate of arts and humanities at Stanford knows there is no more forceful advocate for multicultural emphasis on arts than Professor Ilham. Thank you. I think we should also offer special thanks to Roma Parhad and Franco Enrico of the Iranian Studies programs, who have gracefully and efficiently managed every detail of tonight's event. Thank you, Roma and Franco. Every one of our past winners have had a profound impact on Persian arts and letters. Marjane Satrapi, however, is a new kind of trailblazer who represents our community and speaks to my own experience in a unique way. When Professor Beyzai won the Bita Prize, I mentioned that the valiant woman of his masterful film, Bashu, defiant and dedicated to highest norms of humanity, was in my youth my model and hero. When I read and saw Marjane Satrapi's works and appreciated the vivid, clever, funny, tragic, heroic, and suspenseful account of her eventful life in Iran and then in exile, every poignant word, every clever image in her novel and film not only spoke to me, but felt like a piece of my own life. What young girl has been haunted and abused by self-righteous morality police in Iran who does not see a Persepolis a mirror of her own life? Who has faced the drudgeries and possibilities of exile, the exhilaration of freedom, and the salvation that comes with any form of creativity, and has not thanked Marjane for the brilliance and humanity of her journey? In Silicon Valley, we often rightfully take pride in the accomplishments of our community in the realms of science, commerce, and entrepreneurship. The accomplishments of our exiles in the arts are no less important to appreciate and celebrate. It gives me great pride and pleasure to offer this year's Bita Prize to Marjane Satrapi, who embodies not just the best of our community and our future, but is also a voice for reason and for what joins us in our community and humanity. In these troubled times of rising bigotry and religious intolerance, the liberating voice of Satrapi at once profound and humble, defiant and democratic, satirical but not bitter, self-critical but never self-loathing, is more than ever needed and appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Khanum Marjane Satrapi.
Hello, good evening. Thank you to be so many here. I'm very impressed and I'm extremely moved. I have received lots of prizes in my life, but I have never been moved this way. Sorry. Because the prizes, they last a little period of time. You know, you feel flattered, and you feel that you're very interesting, and after 1 week, you forget about it. But this prize, you know, from Iranian studies means a lot to me, because no matter who I am and who I have become, I owe it all to my country, Iran. And that is without any nationalistic idea, because I don't believe in nationalism. You know, the fact that I'm Iranian is because I'm born in Iran from Iranian parents, so I'm not proud of being Iranian, but I am Iranian, and that is the way I look, and that is the way I feel, and that is the way I will always be. So thank you so much for this prize. I don't know how to thank you. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit too moved for that. The rest of this would be question and answers with you. I like to know what you want me to tell you instead of making a speech. So they told me to tell you that there are actually 2 microphones here on the both sides where you can ask the question. After the Q&A is finished, I will be very happy to sign any book, take any picture, make lots of kisses, hugs, whatever you want. But you have to allow me just to go and have a cigarette, because as you saw in the film, I'm still dressed the same, and I'm still a smoker. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, Ms. Satrapi. I was wondering how language may have impacted your identity. Thank you.
It's actually a very good question. I would just wanted to say it over there, but then I was too impressed to say it, so I forgot to talk about it. The thing is that, you know, unlike everybody else who has won the prize, I have never been writing in Persian. I wrote in French. Not because, you know, my French, well, my literally French is better than my Persian for sure, but I also think that a language is not just, you know, a way of talking, it's also a way of thinking. So I just was really tired of hearing, you know, this story of the clash of the cultures, that I don't believe in it. I think the cultures, they're like the ring of a chain, and, you know, they have lots of effect on each other, so there is not such a things. Like I have always said it, you know, at the time of George W. Bush, when, you know, it was the thing of the axis of evil. I mean, the rhetoric that he was using was exactly the same as the mullah of my country. You know, read the Bible, we are going to fight the axis of evil, God is with us. And they said the same thing to us. Read the Quran, we're going to fight the big Satan, and God is with us. So, you know, it does not depend of where do you come from, you know, to, you know, religious fanatic people, they're everywhere the same, open-minded people, they're the same. So it is not so much a question of East and West or these things. So I just wanted to put the humanity in the center of the story. And for that, I had to say the story to the other ones. You know, the books, all the work that I have made, I did not make it for Iranian people. They know it very well. And if I did it, I would not just make give all this explanation of who is Imam Hussein and who is this and what is that. You know, I would not make all of that. I would make another story. But if I want to write for the French people, then I have to think like a French person, and that is the usage of language comes from there. So this is in which language I write is in French, because I wanted them to understand what I was saying, so I had to think like them. And obviously I could not speak like English, and I'm sorry also because I will make lots of mistakes in English. I've never learned any English at school. Actually, my English comes from watching films. So needless to say that at the beginning when I started talking, I was saying fuck, fuck, fuck all the time, because that is just what you get from American film. So I started this way, and I realized actually people, they don't say fuck every sentence. So that was the French language that was the most obvious. The second usage of language, I think, is the language, is the part of the humor that is extremely important, because I think there are many levels in each languages. You know, we have a level when you talk about objects, for example, table, wall, bird, whatever, and we do understand. Then, you know, we talk about our instinct, like I'm hungry, I'm angry. That is also understandable. We all cry for the same reasons, all the people in the world, because my husband left me, because my mother is dead, my child is sick, my friend, blah, blah. So we cry all for the same reason, but we don't necessarily laugh for the same reasons. The laughter is the highest degree of the understanding of other one, because the laughter is based on abstraction. What makes people laugh? You know, you have a joke like in your family, then you can have a joke for your village, then, you know, for a city, then for a country, and then you have Charlie Chaplin. So, you know, but the moment that you start laughing with the other one, that is the moment that you understand this other one. So this usage of humor in my work was very important also, because not only life is not always sad, I mean, nobody is all the time sad, and nobody is all the time happy. But also I think that also comes from my culture. The most horrible things happen in Iran, and the Iranian coped with it with making the worst jokes, you know, about people that were injured in the war. And, you know, it was so difficult that was our way to surviving it. So, yeah, the language was the humor, and the language French, and this is for these reasons. Yeah.
Hello. Can you talk a little bit about how music has influenced you and your work, in particular the punk culture and other kind of independent rock music?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I was, so, you know, I made all my education in a French school. So, you know, from the very young age, I traveled abroad. I like very much the pop music, and I have never been like fan of traditional music. No kind of traditional music I like. And it happened that when I went to Vienna, you know, it was the end of the punk movement. You know, it stopped in '79, and I was there in '84. But it was some rest of that. And basically this underground culture, I didn't know it, but the fact that I was not like all the bourgeois in my French school, I became friends with the very underground people. That was the only people that would accept me, because Vienna is also a very bourgeois city, very, very bourgeois. So I kind of find out an alternative life. And yes, and with that, you know, I discovered, you know, the Stooges and, you know, the whole, you know, punk culture, and then, you know, the punk culture of Belfast and all of that. And these are the things that nourished me, because I like it a lot. That is when I feel very, very alive, when I listen to it. I still listen to the same music. I think that R&B should be banned, you know, as I hate it. This, you know, it's like, wow. And yeah, and some more of energetic music. Yeah, it has a big effect on my work, especially when I make film, because, you know, it helps me actually to find the rhythm of the thing is extremely important. Yeah, I hope I answered your question. Did I? Okay, good.
Hi, my name is Fatima. I'm a undergrad, I'm a freshman, and I actually read Persepolis in high school, and so I saw the event and I was like, oh my God, I know her and I read her book. So I just wanted to ask you, this might be a little personal, but how do you feel about the fact that so much of your life is like personal, and then available to the public and is on a public platform? And do you hold back on sharing certain parts of like your thoughts and your feelings at certain stages in your life? Yeah.
Well, the whole book, the Persepolis 1 and 2 is 400 pages. So, if 25 years of my life was 400 pages of a comic books, that would only mean that I have had a very miserable, poor life. So, it isn't. So, it is many other things that have happened. And I have really tried to choose moments, that would actually make this connection that I was talking about, to put the humanity in the center and, cut this thing about, the clash of the culture. Like if I have a chapter that is called Kim Wilde, it's not because I think that Kim Wilde is a very great singer. She isn't. And her music really sucks. But in '84, I was listening to Kim Wilde, and people that were, 14 at the time here, they were listening to Kim Wilde. So, it's a pop culture that we all grow up with. So it makes the connection. Only for people here that was, just easy, and for us it was going to the black market, and we could get arrested, etc., etc. It was just more difficult, but we had access to it. So this is part of that. Then that is another part of that is that I'm extremely careful about what I write, about the people that I write. That means that if I like them, I will write their real name and this thing, but if I don't like them, I always change everything. Like my boyfriend in the film, Marcus was not called Marcus, and I describe him really like a son of a bitch. And from my point of view, he was one. Now, if you go and you ask the guy at the time, I was 17, the guy was 19, I wanted him to be my father, my mother, my brother, my sister, my best friend, and it was just too much for him. He couldn't handle it. So if you ask him the point of view, his point of view, he will tell you a completely other story, and his story also would be true, and I'm aware of that. The only thing is that he does not have the tools to express himself. So it's a very unfair game. So therefore, I protect him by changing his name, everything that is around him, but I know that he recognizes himself, and that is a question between him and I, and nobody else. So that's the way I deal with it. Yes, please.
As an artist or a writer who decided to share her story, why did you decide to use the graphic novel, and how do you think the graphic novel is a more effective way of telling a story in general?
Well, this is a very good question, and it is a very odd question at the same time for me, because, I have always, all my life, so now I'm a movie maker, so nobody asks me this question anymore. But from the beginning was like, why did you make a comic books, and why didn't you make a book? I mean, they never asked someone, why did you sing a song, and why didn't you make a film? Or why, And I think I know the origin of this problem is that, all the kids before the age of 6, they all draw. I mean, this is not me, and that is statistic. And around the age of 9, 10, it's a natural selection that is made between the kids, that only the ones that really know how to draw, they continue drawing. But 99.99% of the people, they stop drawing. So for this majority, extremely big majority of the people, the drawing belongs to the childhood. So whenever you have a story that comes with an image, it is like, oh, that must be a little bit childish. And that was the idea that I had about graphic novels. I mean, now they call it graphic novels. I mean, I call it comics. I don't know. I mean, the editor, because graphic novel, don't you think it sounds a little bit like some kind of sexual stuff? It's like, oh, graphic novel. Or Lady Chatterley's Lover graphic novel. They invented that, to say, oh, this is like good comic books. It's called graphic novel. But this is basically what it is. But that is what I thought. Like it was like everybody else. It's like like comics is like kids they read it, adolescent they read it, retarded adult they read it, but no normal, nice, intelligent person would read that. And I read Mouse of Art Spiegelman. And suddenly, you have a door that opens to you because you suddenly realize that you like to tell a story, you like to write, and you like to draw, and it is possible, actually, it's just a media, that you can just use it the way you want. And for me, it was very important because in a very weird way, every time I try to write something, I say to myself, at least I have to be Ernest Hemingway or Dostoevsky, like really pretentious, and that makes that, I become so boring. You cannot imagine. I mean, whatever I write is shit, is bad. I read it and I'm like, what is that? So I lose all kind of sense of humor because I am like, now you are a writer, so now you have to be serious, and it's no good. So the comic form helped me, and helped me for the use of humor, and helped me also to be very precise, because we should not forget that the first language of the human being before the language is actually the drawing. And no matter where you come from, if you draw a sad face, no matter which continent, which country, even if you go, like, I don't know, in Zululand, everybody will understand what is a sad face. So it's a very common, efficient language, the drawing. So that's why. I make very long answers. I have to make them shorter. So, okay, please.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm wondering if you consider yourself a rebel, and what does it mean to be a rebel in today's world?
A rebel? I don't know if I'm a rebel or something, because, like, also if you say I'm a rebel, that means that you're not a rebel. It's like, oh,
yeah.
I'm a rebel.
Since we're talking about pretentious Dostoevsky and
it is like, I never believe on the thing that people they tell me. I don't think that the majority is right. I think the minority, sometimes they can have some good ideas. So, if it's a consensus about the subject, I don't say, oh, people, they say that. And I mean, people at one point, they say that the earth was flat, and they burnt women because they say they were witches, and people, they elected Trump, so, So I cannot trust so much, this idea of majority. That's true.
I don't know if that's the majority, though.
No, I know it is not, and that's why I'm here. Otherwise, I would not come here, believe me. So, but yes, I mean, many times I have been considered like being impolite because I did not say what I was supposed to say. I don't know, maybe that is the rebellion, but if I don't know, like if I had a daughter, like if I had a child, the first word that I would teach my girl was to say, fuck off. I would not teach him to say, hello, good morning, this thing. I think that is what a woman needs. So if that makes out of me a rebel, probably I am, but not so much. Thank you.
Hello, Ms. Satrapi. My name is Christina. I have never felt more honored and pleasured to be in Stanford. I'm also an incoming freshman, and so I'm just at loss of words. But I read Persepolis 3 years ago, and that really just changed my mindset. And also, I guess my question would be about how I'm also an international student here in Stanford, and as a non-citizen, like in a country where you are wanting to be educated, I wanted to know about what kind of experiences that you, now that you reflect on, felt like you had that you didn't process back then, if you have any advice or any kind of like things you would have liked for yourself back then to know as a student, as well as towards a person who I guess would be also considered a rebel in some ways, and someone who would like to speak against like coming from a country of a lot of conservative and oppressive and patriarchal regimes. So
wow.
Yeah. Sorry, that's a lot, I know, but yeah.
So you want me to give you an advice?
Yes.
I'm not
yes.
Okay, so, I think if I can give an advice, and I'm not very good at it, because I think that already I don't think that my advice is good for you. You have to make your own way. You know, what I say is good for me. It works for me, but it does not necessarily work for everyone. But I never, you know, if you're an international, as you call a student, you know, this whole idea that is a conflict and, you know, we don't know how to deal with it, etc., etc. I think there is enough space in our hearts for everything. You know, I mean, just move it a little bit, and you know, it's not like, oh, we are so, we have grown up in a certain way, so we have to behave in a certain way. I mean, after a while, you are a grown-up and you have a brain, so you know you might also use it and make your own decision. So this is the first advice. And then you can make space for everything. And you know, these are things in the Iranian culture that I love. You know, I love the sense of hospitality of the Iranian. I love the Iranian poetry. I love even the Iranian, the way they lie to you. They say, I love you, I die for you. And the second after, they talk bad about you. I love that. Frankly, I see someone for 2 minutes. I don't want him to be honest with me. I just want them to love me and give me warmth. Be hypocrite. I love that. Go ahead. But then there are things like in Iranian culture, you know, the patriarchal culture, I just can't stand it. The fact that somebody would feel superior to me just because of a difference of a penis, you know, that's it. Because, yeah, okay, I have boobs, you know, like, we also have something extra. So, you know, that I can't stand it. And, yeah. So you can also choose what you like and you don't like. You know, you don't need to take the whole package. You know, you can take a little bit of everything. From French people, I learned, you know, the importance of individualism. I also learned how to become a better smoker with more style. And, you know, for American, I learned some stuff. So, you know, you just travel and you just pick what you want. And at the end of the day, you know, it's very bizarre that, you know, like we still use like the word race. I mean, you know, there is no race. Basically, all the human beings come from the same place. There's about 1,200 individuals that go and they spread everywhere. And it happens that they have difference of color of skin and type. So they have different ethnicity. But, you know, there is a human race. And then the other race is the dog race and the cat race, and you know, the other races are the other animals, but that is one race. So if you put that, and that is what I have always fought for, is the idea of humanism, the siècle des Lumières, the 18th century in France. For me, that is the best idea, to put the human in the center of attention. And as I said at the beginning, you know, it's independent on the color of your skin, of the religion, of where you come from. You know, it's a question of intelligence, it's a question of sensitivity, it's a question of what touches you. And I mean, you know, there is no common point between me and the mullah of my countries. And, you know, and there probably between you and many people of your country, there are no common point neither. This is not, just to find the people that you like. And don't go, you know, yeah, just be open. That's
so
probably the only thing. I said I would make, you know, it's the jet lag. My brain is like a porridge, so I speak just nonstop. So I will try to be more concentrated. Please.
Hi.
Hello.
I was just wondering if you were still friends with the people that you were friends with in high school?
No, I'm not. I just have one friend, I have to tell you, that she was from the first year of school we were together, but she was my only friend. And believe me, you know, I'm 46, so, you know, much older than you. And so 3-4 years ago, they met, I'm not on Facebook neither, so, you know, they made the whole thing and they said, oh, we are gonna meet, you know, in a place and all of that. So this friend of mine that I have since a long time, she came to Paris and she said, we have to go there. I said, you know, if you don't see people, there is a reason for that, because we didn't like them back then. Why would they like them now, you know? And I told her, all the people in my high school, I said, this one you remember, you know, how shitty she was. I bet you she's still the same person. Anyway, I didn't go, and she told me that I was right. It's okay if you don't have your high school friends. You will have other ones, much better.
Just wanted to say a word of salam.
Salam, Jan.
Thank you so much for coming. As an Iranian American, your book, when I read it, just shaped so much of how I view my identity and how I communicate that with the people around me in my community. And my question was, you have so many layers that you work through in your book, like language, philosophy, music, image, history. Do all these layers contribute to kind of a different message for different audiences? And can you speak to maybe what that message is?
It's I never look at myself working, so I'm very happy that you see all these layers, but I don't see them myself, to be honest with you. I mean, I try to be honest. I try not to make a fantasy about myself and forgive myself for the bad things that I do, because I'm a human being and imperfect, and I will always do bad things, and that's all okay. And I try, when I write about the history, I try, to have different sources, not to just make mistakes. So you have to make an intellectual work, actually, to, in a way, to be the most ethical possible in no matter what level that you're talking about. That is about the ethic of the work. But all this layer that you're talking about make me feel that I'm very intelligent, but I don't think this way about myself. I write something, so if you see all these layers, great, but I cannot talk about them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
How do you feel about your time in Austria, and do you regret it, or are you glad for the experience?
Well, actually, I'm really glad, despite it was very difficult. If you don't go through difficulties, there are many things that I want to say that you learn from difficulties. Yes, it was not an easy time. Yes, and I don't know why my parents, they sent me to Austria. Why not to Italy? Why not to the south of France? They decided so. It doesn't help you in your life at all to have regrets. It's not like if you could do something about it. So, forget about it and try to try to say what was the best that I learned from there. So I come from a middle-class bourgeois background. And the place that I come from, you become a doctor, or, you become an engineer, or you study law. And that is the way, you make your life. And so I thought that was no alternative life possible. And actually, the life in Vienna, I saw people that were living in communities, being completely crazy, all of that. And their life was just fine, even sometimes much better than ours. They had more fun. So that is that I learned from them. So yeah, you learn from everything, yes, I guess. Yes, please.
Yes, my sister is a professor in South Carolina, a coastal university that no one's ever heard of, but it is a really good school. She's an ethnomusicologist, and she's had several Fulbrights, one to Azerbaijan. She was supposed to go to Iran, but her visa didn't come through. In any event, she was so excited that I was going to see you because she's going to be presenting your book to her class.
Wow.
They're going to be studying your book. And so I wondered whether you had any suggestion, or what should I tell her that you
should tell her that I love her to teach my book in her class.
I will.
Yes, please.
Hi. So I was wondering, how can we today, in like a world that's plagued by quite a bit of bigotry and intolerance, how can we use our art strategically in a way that's respectful and does proper justice to the people that it represents and attempts to portray in telling their stories?
I think it's just a question of ethic. I don't believe so much in morality, because the morality is something that moves all the time. There were things that they were very moral about 200 years ago or 100 years ago, like a girl before marriage should be a virgin. Now, if that's the case, you think everybody will think that you're sick. You have some kind of mental disease. Not to have experienced anything at the age of 35. So that has changed. then, like, okay, you say like stealing is very bad, but if you're Jean Valjean in Les Miserables and you steal a piece of bread for Cosette not to die, then is it a bad action? No, it's a very cool action. Lying is bad, but if you're a political prisoner and you lie, to defend your friends, not to go to jail. So, forget about the morality because, it just evaluates. But you have an ethic. And no matter what you do, you have to think about the ethic of what you're doing. There are people that, they will go and make a film about the tsunami that happened in Thailand. So they put you 20 minutes of real images with real people suffering, and then they create a film of 1.5 hours of shit after that, and they give it to you, and so they take you as a hostage because they put this image in your face. You cannot criticize them anymore. Because people, they're dying and there's a lot of sufferance, but you cannot just create some crap over the sufferance of people. That is ethic. And I'm sure that the guy who does it, he knows what he's doing. And if he doesn't know, then he must be really stupid. And if you're this stupid, you cannot make a film. So, it's somewhere he knows. So, but no matter what you do, if you ask yourself the right question, and if you ask yourself if you're, standing straight, and also, to accept the idea that, from the moment that you have an idea or you have a personality or you say something, some people, they won't like you. And that is also completely okay because you don't like everybody neither. I mean, like me, I don't know, 90% of the people, I don't like them, for real. I mean, why would it be that 100% of the people should like me? If 10% of the people like me, that's a good mathematical thing. It's fine. So don't do things neither to please to people because that is a disaster. If people, they don't like you, they won't like you anyway. So if you just try to keep to the ethic and not have this thing that you absolutely need to be loved, it's very okay if people, they don't like you. Then I think you're on the good way. And then try to make good work also, that doesn't hurt. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Kathy. My best friend is actually a really big fan of you, but she can't be here tonight, and she wants me to ask you actually 2 questions, 2 short ones. So the first one is, how did writing or creating the book Persepolis change the way you view your identity? And the second one is, what's your favorite brand of cigarette?
Okay, so I think this question of identity, it brought me from the anger that I had from the understanding of the other. At the beginning, I started writing Persepolis much before I write it. I mean, that was not at 99. It's not one day that I said, I'm going to write about my life. I told this story before, but it was filled with lots of anger. The problem is that when you have lots of anger, then you start behaving and you start arguing like the people that you are angry at. You become one of those. You become fanatic like them. With the difference that these people, most of the time, you're ignorant, but you don't have even the excuse of the ignorance because you know it. So it makes you even worse than these people. So I had to go through that and understand what has happened. It's very easy to say, these people, they're bad people, they did this, they did that. Yeah, but these people, I mean, one day they were children and they grow up and they were not born bad children. What happened in these people to become the people that they became? And from the moment that I understand that is not that I forgive them, but I'm not angry at them anymore. So, the thing, it took away my anger and I understood what happened and I didn't use the same rhetoric as them. And it made me a better person than they were. So that is what I'm happy about. And for the brand of cigarette, I started with Winston, then I moved to Marlboro. Then for a period, I smoked Camel. And now I'm back to Winston. So now you know.
Thank you.
But it is for 33 years, so it's a long time I'm a smoker. So yeah. Please.
Hello. So my question is about audience. So you talked about how you had to write for a French audience and how that shaped the way you conveyed your work. So, with your other works like Embroideries and Chicken with Plums, which feel a little bit more Iranian because you don't really explain a lot of the things that are happening, it feels like you're writing more for an Iranian audience. So how does that compare to writing Persepolis kind of for a French and Western audience?
Well, chicken with plum and embroideries, they are much more of a very international story. A broken heart, women talking together, you don't need any explanation. So it is open for any kind of audience. I heard so many stupidity about Iranian, since 84, the first time I left the country, the second time I left the country in 94. Every time, people, they're convinced that they know everything because nobody is as convinced as when he is ignorant. The more ignorant we are and the more convinced we are. Because basically, the more you know and the more you know that the situation is complicated. So this ignorance coming with the conviction that they knew, because they also never without my daughter. So, that's it. They knew Iranian man, they all beat up their wife and their, cockroaches in our rice, and we never wash ourselves. So they knew it. And they knew that, we deserve the mullah because, Iran is a big democracy as every, and, this thing to say, if 85% of the Iranian, they were for the mullahs, then it would be called the biggest democracy in the world. So is a dictatorship. Why? Because people, they are not for it, so they have to keep it by, by the power, by the force. And all these things, I had to explain them, and I did that orally. It's not that I didn't do it. But, after a while, you repeat yourself. It was not so much that, I write because I don't like to talk, because as you see, I talk a lot and I like to talk. But it was because I was so sick of repeating myself, so I had to write it. So that was Persepolis. It was vital, and that was something that I thought that I owe it to my country. And the reason I also made an autobiography, and I have to say, I will not call that autobiography, because basically autobiography is a book that you write because you don't like your family and your friends and you don't know how to say it to them, so you make a book, and from back, you're like, okay. I did not do that. The reason I wrote it in my own name is that I did not have any other choice. If I wrote it on someone else's name, I actually positioned myself as a historian or a sociologist or a political analyst, and I'm none of that. I don't have the science. I'm not that. I'm a person who is born in a certain place, in a certain time, who can be unsure about everything, but not about what she has seen. So I just try to give this other version of this other point of view, and I did not have any other way than doing it on my own name. It's not that so much I think that I'm so interesting, and if you look, the book is not so much about me, that it is about what happens, and I am there to watch it. So, this is it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I will take 2 more questions, because now I'm out of nicotine, and also I have to make all the kissing and book signing and these things. So 2 more questions, and then we stop.
So this is a little personal, but for a lot of us... Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's go.
For a lot of us who are immigrants or children of immigrants, I think the process of assimilation is, it comes with a lot of anger and self-loathing, whether or not we realize it or not. Sometimes we have that period of time where we say, what's wrong with us? Why can't I fit in? And so much of our identity is intertwined with our memory of who our parents were. And I'm wondering, did you at any point have any hatred towards your parents for who they were? And how did you reconcile with yourself? And how did that change for you?
Well, I cannot, if I tell you that I've never hated my parents, I would lie. Any normal human being hates his parents at one point. It's normal. That is the way we grow up. We have to kill our parents in order, to confirm ourselves, and that's okay. I don't hate them at all. I really love my parents, and the reconciliation comes with the age. I think you're too young. It's just that, And when I say that, I never believed that one day I would be sitting saying something like that. But it's true that all the things that seem very big, the time goes by, and if you make a work on yourself, I don't say that everybody who becomes older become wise, because then the world would be a fantastic place full of wise, very intelligent people, and the world is full of stupid people. So it doesn't work always. But if you make the effort of asking yourself the question, the anger, you cannot be angry for a long time. Like you cannot be passionately in love for a long time, it just diminishes by itself. You just let the time go. The only thing is that, you just, so I'm again the person that I would never think that would, your parents, even if you're very angry at them, they do the best that they could.
I'm not angry. I was just making a point for you.
But I'm not neither. So that's fine. So I think it's all going to be okay. I promise.
I am okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm not. Okay. So last question.
Yes. You've accomplished a great deal, and a lot of it has apparently been by spontaneity. I wonder if you've thought about the next 10 to 20 years and what you would like to accomplish in that period.
What I want to accomplish in the 10, 20 years coming, I hope that I will have another 2 or 3 lives. Like I hope that, I can make some kind of very cool films ideas that I have. I also want to make some experimentation, and not something for the career, but just for experimenting. Also, I wish that I would be alive for the 20, 30 years coming. I mean, I might die tomorrow, who knows? Yeah, hopefully I will be alive and in shape. Yeah, and for the 5 coming years, I hope that Trump is not going to be reelected. I'm very scared of him. That's it. Thank you.